In the spring of 1945, as Berlin collapsed into fire, smoke, and rubble, one man sat closer to Adolf Hitler than almost anyone alive. He was not a general. He did not command armies or sign death warrants. He did not give speeches or design ideology. He sat in a cockpit. His name was Hans Baur. For more than 15 years, Hans Baur was Adolf Hitler's personal pilot. He flew him across Germany, across Europe, and into the heart of war itself. He heard conversations no stenographer recorded. He witnessed moods, decisions, and private moments that never appeared in official documents. And when the Third Reich finally disintegrated, Baur survived long enough to be interrogated, imprisoned, and eventually released to tell what he had seen. What he revealed was not flattering. Not to Hitler. Not to the Nazi leadership. And not to himself. This is the story of the man who flew the Führer, and the truths he carried from the cockpit into captivity. Hans Baur was born in 1897 in Bavaria, long before the Nazi flag existed. He grew up in a working-class household in a Germany still ruled by the Kaiser. Like many young men of his generation, he was drawn to aviation when it was still experimental, dangerous, and deeply romanticized. Flying was not a career path. It was a gamble. When the First World War broke out, Baur joined the Imperial German Air Service. He flew reconnaissance and transport missions, not the glamorous dogfights that filled propaganda posters. Early aviation was unforgiving. Engines failed. Navigation was primitive. Survival depended as much on luck as skill. Many pilots died without ever seeing an enemy. Baur survived. That fact alone mattered. After the war, Germany was forbidden from having an air force. Military pilots were suddenly unemployed, watched closely by the Allies, and often broke. Baur adapted. He moved into civilian aviation and eventually joined Lufthansa, Germany's national airline. There, he built a reputation for discipline, technical precision, and reliability. He was not flashy. He did not seek attention. He was the kind of pilot airlines trusted with difficult routes and important passengers. By the early 1930s, aviation had become central to politics. Adolf Hitler, newly rising to power, understood spectacle. He needed to appear everywhere, constantly, faster than his rivals. Air travel gave him that advantage, but only if it was safe. Hitler was terrified of assassination. He trusted very few people. His pilot had to be flawless. In 1933, Baur was summoned to meet Hitler. The meeting was brief and strangely informal. Hitler asked about Baur's flying experience. He asked whether Baur could keep secrets. He asked whether Baur would obey orders without question. Baur later claimed he was apolitical at the time. That claim deserves skepticism. By 1933, no one operating at that level in Germany was truly neutral. Still, Hitler hired him immediately. From that moment on, Hans Baur's life no longer belonged to himself. Baur was placed in charge of Hitler's personal aircraft, a Junkers Ju-52 trimotor named Immelmann II. But his role quickly expanded. He managed Hitler's entire air operation, aircraft selection, pilot training, route planning, security coordination, emergency contingencies. He was promoted into the SS and given a rank equivalent to a general. That detail matters. Baur was not just a chauffeur in the sky. He was embedded in the regime. Flying with Hitler was unlike flying with any other passenger. According to Baur, Hitler was a deeply anxious flyer. He hated turbulence. He hated storms. He hated sudden movements. During bad weather, he would grip the armrests and ask constant questions about altitude, engine performance, and visibility. Yet once reassured, Hitler became talkative. The cockpit became a confessional. Hitler spoke about architecture, art, German history, and military strategy. He complained about subordinates. He speculated about the future. He monologued endlessly. Baur claimed he rarely responded, preferring to present himself as a technician, not a thinker. Whether this was humility or self-preservation is unclear. What is clear is that Baur listened. He saw Hitler without crowds, without banners, without staged applause. He saw a man obsessed with control, deeply suspicious, and increasingly isolated even in the early years of power. Baur observed Hitler's routines closely. Publicly, Hitler demanded punctuality and precision. Privately, he kept chaotic hours. He stayed awake late into the night watching films or holding rambling discussions. He slept late. Schedules shifted constantly. Baur and his crew often waited for hours with engines prepared while Hitler delayed departure without explanation. As the years passed, Baur noticed changes. Hitler's temper worsened. His patience vanished. His distrust deepened. He lashed out verbally at generals, ministers, and aides. But notably, Baur was rarely the target. Baur stayed useful. He stayed quiet. He stayed loyal. That loyalty placed him at the center of history. Throughout the 1930s and early years of the war, Baur flew Hitler to every major event: the remilitarization of the Rhineland, the Anschluss with Austria, the Munich Conference, the invasion of Poland, and the fall of France. In June 1940, Baur flew Hitler to campaign for the signing of the armistice with France. Hitler insisted it be held in the same railway carriage where Germany had surrendered in 1918. It was theatrical revenge. Baur later described Hitler as elated on that flight. Relaxed. Even humming. For a brief moment, Hitler believed history had bent entirely to his will. That moment did not last. As the war expanded, flights became longer, riskier, and more secretive. Baur flew Hitler to occupied territories, to frontline headquarters, to conferences where generals argued and failed. The further the war progressed, the more Hitler micromanaged operations from afar, issuing orders based on ideology rather than reality. Baur witnessed this shift firsthand. He heard Hitler dismiss intelligence reports. He saw him reject battlefield assessments that contradicted his expectations. He watched generals leave meetings pale and silent, knowing they had been ordered to do the impossible. By 1942 and 1943, the war in the East was consuming Germany. Flights to the Eastern Front were grim. Baur recalled Hitler staring out windows for long stretches, speaking less, brooding more. Victories became rare. Blame became constant. Hitler's health declined visibly. His hands trembled. His posture stooped. He shuffled when he walked. Baur initially attributed this to exhaustion. Later evidence suggests Parkinson's disease, worsened by heavy drug use prescribed by Dr. Theodore Morel. Baur saw Morel constantly. Injections. Pills. Tonics. Stimulants. Sedatives. Hitler was chemically sustained. By 1944, the illusion was collapsing. The July 20th assassination attempt shattered what remained of Hitler's trust. After surviving the bomb blast at Wolf's Lair, Hitler became obsessed with betrayal. Executions followed. Loyalty tests intensified. The inner circle shrank. Baur flew Hitler shortly after the attempt. He described a man convinced that fate itself protected him. Providence, Hitler believed, had chosen him. That belief hardened into delusion. As Allied bombers devastated German cities and enemy armies closed in, Hitler traveled less. He retreated underground. The cockpit, once his stage, became irrelevant. By early 1945, Hitler stopped flying entirely. Baur followed him into the bunker. The Führerbunker beneath Berlin was not a command center in any meaningful sense. It was a tomb waiting to close. Baur described a suffocating atmosphere, stale air, artificial lighting, constant explosions shaking the walls. Maps were updated with imaginary units. Orders were issued to divisions that no longer existed. Hitler continued holding briefings. Officers nodded. No one contradicted him. Baur watched a man detached from reality yet clinging to authority. Hitler spoke of counterattacks, relief forces, miracle weapons. None were coming. On April 28, Hitler learned Heinrich Himmler had attempted to negotiate surrender with the Western Allies. Hitler erupted. Treason. Betrayal. The regime was eating itself. That same day, Hitler married Eva Braun. Baur was not present at the ceremony, but he saw them afterward. Calm. Resigned. Almost peaceful. There was no romance left, only finality. On April 29, Hitler dictated his last will. Baur witnessed parts of this process. The document blamed everyone but Hitler himself. The German people. The generals. The traitors. Responsibility remained external. On April 30th, Hitler killed himself. Baur was not in the room, but he was nearby. He later described hearing a single gunshot. Silence followed. He was summoned. Hitler lay dead. A bullet wound to the head. Eva Braun beside him, cyanide. The man Baur had flown for 16 years was finished. Baur helped carry the bodies into the garden. They were doused with fuel. Set on fire. There would be no grave. No relic. The Third Reich ended not with defiance, but with panic. After Hitler's death, the bunker dissolved into chaos. Staff scattered in small groups, attempting escape. Baur joined one such group, including Martin Bormann. They moved through tunnels and sewers under constant threat. They failed. Under Soviet fire, the group broke apart. Baur was wounded in the leg. He collapsed. He was captured on May 2, 1945. The Soviets immediately understood who he was. Hans Baur was interrogated relentlessly. He was asked about Hitler's death, about secret weapons, about hidden assets, about escape routes, about everything. He confirmed Hitler's suicide. He described the bunker. He drew diagrams. But he had no physical proof. The bodies were ashes. Stalin doubted everything. Baur was transferred to Moscow. He spent years in NKVD prisons and labor camps. He was not executed. He was not released. He existed in limbo. 10 years passed. In 1955, he was released and returned to West Germany. He was 58 years old, broken in health, and surrounded by a country eager to forget. In 1956, Baur published his memoirs. They caused a sensation. For the first time, the public heard a detailed, first-hand account of Hitler's private life from someone who had been constantly present but never powerful enough to shape events. Baur described Hitler as paranoid, obsessive, increasingly delusional. He confirmed suicide. He dismissed escape myths as nonsense. Historians scrutinized his claims. Some details matched other testimony. Others were flawed. Dates blurred. Names confused. And always, Baur portrayed himself as apolitical. Just a pilot. Just a professional. That claim does not hold up. Baur was an SS general. He benefited from proximity to power. He enabled Hitler's movements. He witnessed decisions and said nothing. His loyalty was not neutral, it was functional. He rarely addressed the Holocaust. Rarely acknowledged moral responsibility. He spoke of tragedy, not guilt. This is the core tension of Hans Baur's story. He saw everything, and chose not to intervene. His testimony matters because it exposes how evil systems operate. Not only through fanatics, but through technicians. Through specialists. Through people who say, "I was just doing my job." Hans Baur died in 1993 at the age of 96. One of the last men to see Hitler alive. He flew history itself. And what his story ultimately reveals is not just who Hitler was, but how ordinary professionalism can become the backbone of extraordinary crimes. The cockpit saw it all. The silence made it possible.